first workers at New York City's public train service collected more than $500 million, $500 million in overtime. One guy upped his pay more than 200%. Here with more is Good Day New York's Greg Kelly. Take a listen.
Working overtime, for many workers, it's a legal right. You stay longer at work beyond your shift, you get more money, time and a half. That's fine. But is what's going on at the MTA a little ridiculous, maybe? The state controller reports that overtime payments are out of control. Last year, the MTA put out more than $500 million in overtime. A track worker, foreman, who gets a base salary of $82,000, boosted their pay to $230,000. And there are more examples like that.
The MTA spending millions, that's right, millions of New Yorkers' taxpayer, hard-earned taxpayer money in overtime abuse. Just take a look at a few of these outrageous examples. Joining me now to weigh in on this outrage is GOP strategist Jack Burkman in D.C. and Money Rock's favorite liberal, Fox News contributor Alan Combs. Guys are going to
you didn't say whether Jack was liberal or not, did you?
I don't think he's liberal.
Oh, okay.
Let me ask him, Jack. You're not liberal, I'm guessing, but let me ask, how does it get to here it is. $600 million in overtime. By the way, some people were making X and 2 times X in overtime, tripling their salaries in overtime. How does it get like that?
Eric, I'll tell you, I'm so emotional I can hardly talk about this passionately. I guess I'll have to try. I mean, first of all, let me call on the New York State Attorney General, Andrew Cuomo. If he wants to be fair and even-handed as he claims, launch an immediate investigation into this. I guarantee you what you will find is nothing less than fraud on the part of the union. My suspicion as a lawyer is that a lot of things have been falsified. There were plenty of people to do the job, but they made everything look as though there was a labor shortage so they could force overtime to people.
And investigation has to wake up, Jack. Hold on, I want to wake him up because I'm going to ask him this. I'm going to ask you this, Alan. Where are we?
Yeah, I was napping.
Unions. I'm contending. I'm going to tell you, it has something to do with unions. Whenever there are people abusing the system.
Good old union bashing.
Well, Alan, how is this not a union issue?
I admit, look, this is due diligence. They're looking at it. They clearly have discovered a problem. What, I'm a liberal. I'm going to defend egregious overtime
pay? I'm guessing you're going to defend this union. Am I mistaken?
Look, let the union, let them be due diligence. Let's go through it and let's see if there's really an issue. And let's talk to the union and let's
Jack, allow me to ask you this. No. I want to do this. New York City raised their subway and bus fare 12% last year. 2011 and 2013, another 7.5%. They're cutting service, and yet these people are enabling themselves, putting a ton of money in their pocket. A little union, yes, no, what?
You know, it's just amazing. It just gets you so angry you can't even talk about it. I'm surprised that Alan would want to defend quote-unquote working people who make $230,000 a year. I would think even Karl Marx would see this as fallacious. I'll tell you, Eric, this is one more reason. Let me tell you the solution. The solution is you shouldn't have unions for public employees. It's bad enough they're sucking off the taxpayer. It's bad enough you have high wages. This is one more example of why public employees should have no right to unionize.
You're talking about a very small group of people compared to a number of people who are public employees who need representation. In other words, the lowly employee in terms of wages who doesn't often make as much money as people in the private sector, they shouldn't have representation. There shouldn't be union. It's not so because there's some malfeasance possibly.
No, they shouldn't.
Let me finish my point. Because there might be some malfeasance here, we should now what, do away with unions and deny these people representation because there are some evildoers or wrongdoers?
Jack.
That's ridiculous.
Alan, let me tell you something. When you work for the taxpayers, it is a privilege. It is bad enough that these people make careers out of working for government, which no one should do.
It's bad that they make careers
very bad. It's not the American way.
Government employees?
Hold on. This is good break in here. Let me break in here, Jack. Hold on, Alan. Jack. Ross, you're shaking your head over there. Where do you stand on this?
I mean, who's in charge? Who's in charge of auditing these people? Who looks at these numbers and files reports? I mean, if you look at the numbers, I guarantee you that you're going to see that millions of dollars are spent in audit fees.
Millions of dollars in audit fees.
In audit fees.
We'll pay the audit fees when we root out stuff like this. Take a listen. Where's my camera here? Here's a repairman. An MTA repairman makes $64,000 a year. Doesn't sound bad, right? Okay, he works hard. But look at this. Overtime. $142,000 in overtime, bringing his salary to total compensation $207,000.
The American dream,
baby. The Attorney General needs to launch a sweeping criminal. the Attorney General needs to launch a sweeping criminal investigation of this entire thing. There is no way, let me tell you something, even if the union wants to argue that you had labor shortages for short periods of time, maybe somehow that's possible. But you could never have had this kind of a labor shortage over the period of time that the union is arguing. It's almost a per se case of fraud. The Attorney General has got to get involved.
Before we do this, we're going to go to Mr. DiNapoli, who did headed up this investigation. In 1 second, Alan, I got to ask you this. Here's what's going on. You can accrue, apparently within the MTA, you can accrue overtime, pad your last year's salary, and then base your pension going forward for the rest of your life on that last year.
You can certainly extract some people who have gamed the system. The question is, how widespread is this? How pervasive is it? What percentage of employees are doing this? Jackie just wants to do away with unions, period, because you conservatives hate unions. But how pervasive is it, and what has to be done to prevent it?
Hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions.
How many people are involved in this? The question is, and what do you mean, all of them?
You know what I haven't even done yet?
All of them? Every employee? All of them?
I haven't even introduced the panel. This is Phoebe Roth, Ross Mendel, Kim Guilfoyle. My bad. They're just chomping at the bit because this is so aggravating. We're going to leave that part of the discussion there because I want to go to New York State's Comptroller, Thomas DiNapoli. His office was responsible for this report, this audit that outed the MTA. Thank you for joining us, Mr. DiNapoli. Of all the things that seem egregious in here, there are so many, the one that really strikes me is that these workers were able to increase their salary their last year and then take a benefit for the rest of their life on the taxpayer dime. Well,
and that's part of the concern. It's not only upfront costs, it is then the costs that extend when the pensions are increased because of the overtime being added to the base salary. And as you pointed out in the discussion, some very significant examples of overtime. From my point of view, it starts with the fact that there's been a culture of acceptance there at the MTA, and there needs to be a change in the whole administrative process where they review who's getting the overtime, what are the work schedules, what are the shifts. A lot of it has to do with management control. Some of it will have to involve discussions with labor as far as work rules, but everybody has a piece of this, especially at a time where service is being cut, fares are being increased. This is certainly an area where the MTA needs to do a much better job of controlling costs.
Mr. DiNapoli, let me ask you this. Mr. Sander made 200, he runs the place. He made 265 up to 300,000. We're not exactly sure how much he actually made. He may have made more and overtime. But here's the thing that kills me. He made $60,000 in a housing allowance. And then Helena Williams also runs one of the subsets here, one of the sub-businesses, 215 grand, but $42,000 in housing allowances. These are outrageous numbers, are they not? Are they in line with other cities?
Well, I haven't done the comparison with other cities. It does raise the issue that many of us have been talking about with regards to the authorities. They're set up and they become government entities on their own without the kind of scrutiny and oversight that you would have in regular agencies of government. So,
sorry, are you getting pushback from the union?
No, well, look, the unions are facing, in light of everything going on with the MTA, cutbacks in terms of layoffs and position reduction. And that's why you look at an issue like this, it's in everyone's interest, certainly in terms of the riders and those that use MTA services, first and foremost, for this cost to be controlled. We're at a time where every dime is precious with regard to money for transportation, and there clearly is an excess here.
Mr. DiNapoli, hang in there. I want to get my panel in here. We only have about 3 minutes left. Kimmy, I want to get you. You're in New York City. I assume you're a subway rider or occasionally MTA rider.
I'm apparently riding the subway tonight to the Yankees game. I'm very excited about it.
Does this make you crazy?
This makes me crazy. And also, having worked in politics in San Francisco and hung around with some of Alan's friends in the Democratic Party, let me tell you something. This is a culture of corruption, and there has been acceptance in this wholesale where they look the other way because you know it and I know it, Alan, unions help get them elected. So it is no surprise to me, okay, that you're going to have someone like Andrew Cuomo look the other way. The unions have been running roughshod over everybody,
look the other way?
And the taxpayers are paying for it.
Listen, now that Mr. DiNapoli is doing his due diligence,
you know,
good for him. He's doing his job.
Mr. DiNapoli's presupposition was that his comments were good, but he's presupposing that everything here is legitimate. Things may be illegitimate. This may be, you have a labor shortage for a long period of time. My contention here is you may have falsification of a lot of records. And I think this is a much broader investigation.
Mr. DiNapoli, are you finding any instances of that? Because it would seem to me that it'd be pretty darn easy to do it legally. Just punch in, punch out.
part of what we try to point out with the audit. There should be a system in place where some obvious red flags go up, where you don't have these excessive accumulation of overtime, and then you need to look at that. Is it justified, and is there a situation of fraud? I think that's a valid question.
Well, Alan, does the union facilitate fraud, though? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Why would that be the default position? Because it's a union that's going to facilitate fraud. And why would you presume Andrew Cuomo's going to look the other way? Is there any evidence of that?
I'm encouraging him actually to take this issue head on, and I'm just telling you, because I'm
And
not
perhaps he will.
politically naive, that he's not going to.
Well,
because
hey,
he's
I
not
got to just jump in real
Go ahead,
quick.
Russ.
You know, it's common knowledge.
Yeah.
It's common knowledge that this behavior is occurring. Everybody knows it. I mean, these abuses exist, and you use a terminology, acceptance of culture.
ahead.
What does that mean?
Hang in there, Russ.
Mr. Cuomo doesn't need any type of spurring on to launch investigations of Wall Street. Why does he need the Fox Business
Very good
Channel
point,
to spur
Jack.
him on
Very
to
good point,
investigate
Jack. Hang in
this?
there. Mr. DiNapoli, are you going to send it to Cuomo's? Has he contacted you?
Our information is out there. It was just released, and we're doing more oversight in the controls office.
Has he
We're
contacted
looking
you,
at
sir?
more of this as well.
Has he contacted you?
I haven't spoken to him about this audit. No.
How long has this abuse been occurring? Does anybody know?
I think something like this obviously doesn't happen overnight. There's
30, 40 years, maybe?
Hang in there, Russ. Mr.
Yeah.
DiNapoli, I want to say thank you to you very much. And Jack Burkman, I also want to say thank you. Before we go, though, Mimi, outrageous.
As someone who rides the subway every day, there's no station agents. They wanted to cut student passes. They're cutting. I don't think everyone knew. Now we do know.
All right, there we go. We're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank the two gentlemen who are on the phone, Jack Burkman and Thomas DiNapoli, New York State Comptroller. Thank you very much.